Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We'll just give it a couple minutes for other folks to join, and then we'll get started. For those that just joined, welcome. Thanks for joining. We'll get started here in about a minute or so. All right, we can get started. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Welcome to Delivering a Customer First Support Strategy with Best in Category Solutions webinar, hosted by Assembled, Intercom, and evaluagent. Thanks again for joining. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Archit Kumar. I am from the partnerships team here at Assembled, and I'm also based out of New York City. I'll let the other panelists do an intro shortly, but before I do, I'd like to share what brought our three companies together. Assembled, which is a support operations platform that specializes in workforce management, Intercom, which is an AI-first customer service platform, and evaluagent, which is a holistic QA solution. All three of our solutions integrate together to create a powerful bundle of best-in-category solutions that deliver the exact value and impact that customers are looking for. And so our organizations realize that the value of our solutions together is more than just one by one. And so we're excited to come together today to talk about two big things. One is why integrated tools provide value and the way to go about the buying process. And two, why best in category specifically is so powerful, especially relative to, let's call it all-in-one bundles that exist in the marketplace. Now, before we jump in, just a couple housekeeping notes. We will share a recording of this call afterwards, so expect that in your email. If you have any questions for the panelists or in general, feel free to add it in the chat. Once we get through our, at the end, we'll basically answer questions. And we will also have a few poll questions that pop up at various times. If you could answer those, that would be great. We'll use that in some of our questions, answers, and it's also great for us to get feedback from you all. All right, let's get started with introductions. We can go Jeremy.
The support team here at Assembled for the past 2 years. And previously I was with Google Cloud support and Looker. And I'll also point out I was actually an early customer of Assembled long before working there. And so I'm very familiar with the challenge of finding tools like these and making them work for what you need.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. I'm Bobby. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Support over at Intercom, currently right now here in Chicago. I've been at Intercom a little over 6 years. I spend most of my time leading our human support team. So when a ticket conversation gets to a human, what that experience is like. And yeah, excited to be with this great panel today.
Hi everyone, James. I'm here in for a change, sunny Britain. So it's nice to have the good weather over here. Look after the commercial side of the organisation for evaluagent, which is a QA platform, as Archie said. And we work really closely with the other platforms here to really offer an all-round great solution for customers. We ourselves use Intercom for our own customer support team as an example. So excited to have some good discussions this evening. Or this morning, depending where you are.
Thanks, James. So I'm Brad Herrington. Nice to meet everyone. I'm an independent consultant. I'm not actually associated with the other three here. I've been in the CX industry a couple of decades now, work on both client side with product selection as well as vendor side, early startups in the contact center space, with channel creation and things like that in the CX industry. Interested to be part of this discussion today and give some of my views, vendor agnostic, so to speak. So we'll leave it at that. Hand it over to you, Archit.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for being part of the panel. There's a lot of decades worth of experience in this group, so I'm really excited to hear what the answers are and the insights that we'll be able to provide. So let's just jump into it, actually. Let's start maybe with just something that we kind of assume, but let's dive into it, which is, what's the biggest benefit of having multiple tools integrated with your platform? Like, what is the real value? Why is it so common sense that we assume that it's always true?
Yeah, I think that's really the key question, and I'll even say it's like, why are you going to the point of having a tool beyond just using a spreadsheet for some of these things? And ultimately, it's really about consistency and the ease of use. It keeps your data consistent. It provides transparency with your other team members, with your other teams in the org, as well as your executives, and helps keep everything clear for individuals as well. They can really see and connect the dots between the different tools you have, and that allows your team to actually concentrate on their jobs, which is providing outstanding customer support and for the managers being able to manage their team instead of trying to manage tools.
Yeah, some really good points there. Sorry, Bobby, was it Brad? Someone was talking. I don't want to cut over people. The joys of doing this through Zoom, I guess, or whatever platform. It's leading on from that. It's about kind of getting solutions that are designed to solve specific problems. What we are offering people was built by people who have lived and breathed those problems, so that they can solve for very specific things but still talk to the other platforms, whereas perhaps that all-in-one starts to shallow the wider it gets. So I think that's a really important kind of point of what we all offer.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add in is like Intercom, like our tool does a lot of things, but we've also learned like there's a lot of things like we shouldn't do, right? And that's why we have like a whole app store with companies like evaluagent in there. We tried being like the everything platform, sales, marketing, and CS, and like we're saying, you end up spreading yourself so thin, you're not able to be like that key tool for anybody. And so knowing your lane and being able to say, it's like, hey, each of these tools, here's what they do really well. Like if I have my CRM information over here, if I can pull that into Intercom, like whether it's different teams operating it or those softwares doing their own special things, it's going to give you those better outcomes for your teams and customers.
Yeah, I'll add, I think, Bobby, your stay in your lane comment, and then James with sort of the expertise. I mean, you see that a lot, especially talking with clients where roadmaps for the bundled or the all-in-one have to be so much higher because the decisions impact everything. All functional areas are going to be impacted by something that we do. So, I deal with clients who get the latest feature list of, their current platform, and they're like, wow, there's 20 new AI features. This is fantastic. I'm like, guys, I've been wanting silence detection for 2 years. Can we just get, like, it's on the priority list. There's that wave of, we're working on this, and then we're going to work on the next thing. So the focus and the expertise, not necessarily staying in your lane, it's just having a lane, I think sometimes is is about, focusing on what their priorities are, customer side and vendor side. So I think it's probably going to be a common thread over the next several questions that we have here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And Brad, maybe just diving a little bit deeper, you mentioned AI, and there's a lot of pros to AI. There's maybe some limitations with AI today. So let's kind of talk about that. So, how does AI throughout each of your products make the stack even more powerful? We talked about integration, but how does AI enhance that the tool that you guys offer, especially when it integrates together with some of the other tools, so Assembled, Intercom, evaluagent?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious one for me is it starts to take away those laborious admin tasks and allows people to get to the value and the reason they actually joined the business in the first place with a bunch of skills and experiences. Jeremy, you talked about spreadsheets. One of the first things that comes to mind is stop using spreadsheets and crunching spreadsheets and actually do something with meaningful data. It's almost frightening how many customers come to us with their QA still baked into a spreadsheet. And it's like, gosh, and we're talking, tens of hundreds sometimes of agents being managed against the QA on a spreadsheet. It's just like, there's tools out there that can do that. And AI is it sounds so simple, but actually that's where we're seeing AI be effective. Take away some of the simple but laborious tasks and allow people to add value.
Yeah, and just to chime in on the Intercom side, as mentioned, we're like an AI first customer service platform. So we're all in on this. And the way that we try to think about it is it's not about like, okay, here's AI, what do I do with it now? But really just going back to like your initial, like, what is this job to be done? And if, for example, like every support team wants to respond to customers quickly. And you can do that by hiring a lot of humans for 24/7 coverage, or you can put in like an AI agent, this like AI chatbot that's going to be there to do that quickly for you. Or same for like your teammates are going to need to find resources and answers. They can do that across 20 different tabs, or you can have this AI copilot that's right there digging through those past case histories or those resources. And so I think when thinking about AI, it's like, it doesn't have to be this like problem in search of a solution. Like it's the same stuff we've always been talking about. Now AI is that tool. And I think this is lastly where like sometimes having that platform can be beneficial because it gives you AI can have these compounding impacts, right? So if you get a question that the bot can't answer, you can then set it up so the bot learns from that and can answer it next time. So you see these compounding impacts of AI, which is one of the really cool parts of the tech stack.
Yeah, I love how you're talking about like the way that AI is really just to enhance the abilities of your agents, and that's really I think the key. Whenever I'm talking to other support leaders, it's all about like ultimately, when customers have hard problems or challenging situations, they need to talk to someone, and that's an important interaction for our customers. It's the way we differentiate ourselves for having amazing customer support. So AI needs to be able to supplement that. It needs to be able to make the interaction more meaningful by enabling those agents, making it easier for customers. So that really resonates with me. I think it's really key to using AI to, not be a surrogate for people, but make those people even more effective in their roles.
Fantastic. This got me thinking a little bit. So let's talk about how we're bringing our tools together and what value that's providing. Let's actually start maybe with you, Brad. What are some of the biggest myths and misconceptions about tool consolidation? You kind of hit on this with your previous response.
Yeah, a bit. So biggest myth, I guess there's a couple that bubble to the top. I mean, the deployment and adoption are always faster with the bundled, the all-in-one. That we can spin up an instance in 2 weeks. We can have you taking calls really quick. But what the reality is, and what I've seen with customers of all sizes, is there's competing priorities for the fight for the front of the line. What are we going to do first? The returns group wants a chat bot. They need a new AI chat bot. We've got problems with returns and shipping, and that's great. But you're down the end of the line. We've got to do queues. We've got to do telephony consolidation. We've got to do all these things before that. And sometimes the groups start infighting. It's like, no, look, we were part of this discussion, this selection process. We need this now. We have an actual business need. So sometimes we'll work with companies and say, look, there's an actual need right there for a point solution. Why don't you just go get something that solves this problem so that you don't have to worry about, well, just give them a login. They can build it on the current platform. It's like, no, because they're going to build one, and the main website's going to build one, and HR is going to want to build one. We're going to have all these different types of bots built, and we have no standards and methodology on the new platform because you do things in a correct order that make this right for everyone. So the idea that it's just always faster and better becomes this can become a little bit of a management nightmare because you've got too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, on there. So it's like, hang on, there are issues where point solution will work perfectly for that, while we may still be doing the overarching platform here, and it just works for some clients. So the idea that it's always faster and always quicker for adoption, I think that's a little bit of a myth. And then the next one is really the misconception that the integrations it adds complexity. Because I deal with clients who are coming from premise, and their mindset is, oh, this is dual administration, this is dual data, this is duplicating things that we already have, and it's like, no, you've missed the sort of, I guess, evolution of technologies outside of CX, things like cloud storage and compute and open APIs and all the things that are being used, anything from SCIM for user management, where no, putting these things together is not the way we used to think about it. It's so much easier, and the management is just not the burden that we have the concept for from the premise days that we're out there. So the idea that it's faster for the all-in-one, only on some certain occasions. Do it right, it's not going to be fast. And then the misconception that, oh, if you put more than one product together, I have to have two admins. Well, you do anyway. You're going to have a HR admin, a QM, a workforce management, a contact center. That's going to be there regardless, because those are the functional areas that you have. So I think those are probably the couple misconceptions. That, and the fact that, I guess question one was the focus on the point solutions is there's no way that the consolidated platform can have 100% of everything that you need in every functional area. It's too hard. Nobody has unlimited resources here. So I'll get off my soapbox on that, and I'll let a vendor chime in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just so spot on though with like the idea that we want to think that the all-in-one's going to have a perfect integration with itself and everything will flow smoothly. But I think the reality is we've all faced having to then try and make it work with our own workflows, whereas the point solution actually is thinking about your workflows and having some flexibility there, as opposed to like an all-in-one where a lot of times you're trying to bend your workflows to fit their needs. And I think ultimately that leads to people trying to use Zapier to get data in or out, or trying to connect pieces that aren't working the way they want them to work. And I know I've been there, and I'm sure others have experienced that as a common problem with those all-in-one, but not quite fitting anyone well solutions.
Yeah, and I think acknowledging there's going to be some inherent tension there, which is okay. Like at one point, Intercom, we were using like 4 different tools for word processing, and it drove me nuts. I'm like, come on, guys, can we just pick one here? So like there can be those benefits, but at the same time, a lot of these tools, they claim to do everything, right? Like they put it on their website, so you will start the trial, or to be able to check that box going through procurement. But then when you're actually like testing it out and you're under the hood, it either like has all these limitations. We were just talking about a company that has like an AI co-pilot, but then it doesn't work with most customer support actual channels, right? So it's like, oh, so like it's there for this tiny little niche case. Like that's not actually helpful. Or they have it on their website and you go and they're like, well, it's on our roadmap, it's coming soon, right? So I think this idea that, these like big tool consolidations can do it all, it's like definitely go in some skepticism and check under the hood before just, assuming it's all there.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that stays in beta forever for some of these platforms is amazing. And whereas one of the things I've always seen is kind of, we can do it all. So have you actually shown you? Have you actually let you do it? Have you actually had a trial and built these things? Invariably, the answer is no. Whereas by the way we approach it is that we can't do things like this if we haven't built the tool already, because the credibility factor just disappears. So that's one of the things I always kind of, anytime we're challenged with, well, I've got this in my insert name platform here, It's like, yeah, but have you actually used it? Have they shown you it? To your point, Bobby, have you put calls in? Have you put your chatbot in? Have you, or is it just on a few things? It's that misconception that just because they've said it doesn't mean that they can do it. So no, I'm getting into advice mode now. Brad, you put me on a soapbox as well, but test it. If you can't, if they don't let you actually put your hands on it, don't trust it. Kind of thinking.
Own it, James.
Well, that was great. Brad, I have a couple follow-ups for you, but before we do, we just posted a poll for everyone in attendance. So if you could just take maybe 5 seconds to respond to that poll question, that would be great. And so while they're doing that, Brad, what I wanted to follow up with is, we talked about myths and misconceptions. You've worked with so many companies over your career. Can you give an example of maybe one or two of a company that went with that all-in-one, but then didn't really get the results that they were hoping for? Just so it's very vivid for our audience here, what the ramifications could be.
So reframe it. So just, like the hidden costs or what?
Maybe just walking us through like an example of a someone that you worked with that ended up going with an all-in-one and what their experience was. It could be from a cost perspective, things that did work out, things that didn't work out.
Sure. I think some of the times it comes down to hidden costs where, usually sort of the standard response is, oh, you're paying for things you don't use. I don't buy that a lot of times because these products have matured enough that they know what their market is. They know where the cost is. But we talked about earlier, you get competing groups internally so you end up with scope creep because nobody's getting what they wanted when they wanted because there's just too many priorities in there. And then you also, as you come in, we've seen it where they deploy the total solution and the first thing on the whiteboard is get rid of the redundant technology. It's a big battle cry for consolidation. Knee jerk is you already got functionality that does this in this solution. Get rid of all the other ones that do the same thing. And it's like everyone's under one contract and it's so much easier. You can retire all the redundants. And what we do is kind of take a step back and say, hold on, focus on the customer experience and the departmental needs before we just get rid of everything because we happen to have it somewhere else. Because if you're not careful, you choose something that may have, like we talked, we're just picking a number, like 80% of the feature or experience that the customer needs in favor of something that was already doing 100% of what you wanted. And your justification was, well, I've got this lower transaction cost and lower user fee, and it's a multi-year contracts, but better serving those customers who directly contributed to revenue far outweighs anything that has to do with transaction costs and overages and telephony savings, things like that. So a lot of times it's come down to look at what you have, because the point solution is not something that is coming in all the time. It could already be there. There could be an evaluagent or an assembled or intercom already here. And it's like, wait, we don't need to just throw everything out. Let's decide, where does this focus in the customer experience? Which ones do we need to actually play on? Because you could cost yourself money simply because, well, it's on this list. Look, we can do it all here. We're just going to rewrite everything. Best of luck with that, because that can be a little bit of an overwhelming task if you're just trying to, make do with one that you've got a contract with. So again, it's just from certain experience. Sometimes it's perfect, but sometimes it's just people get a little too rushed to say we could do everything all in this one place and it'll just be so much easier. And it's like, I don't need easy. I need solutions for experience and empathy and all the other things that go along with the customer experience at this point. So I'll let someone else sort of chime in. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's worked on that.
It's a good point. We often see that there's a compromise that has to be had. So, the QA team have a list of requirements, the support team have a list of requirements, and on it goes. And the platform dilutes all of those needs, and someone somewhere has to say, okay, for you to get that capability in this platform, I've got to give up that one. I won't name the name of the organization, but there's a very big retail chain over here who we know went with one of those platforms, and then their QA team, 80% of their requirements list was actually missing And the procurement team who forged ahead were like, we're getting a great deal, and that's why we're doing it. But it was, okay, but I can do 1/5 of my plan now because you haven't bought me the right tools. So it's that, the cheaper option, the cost-effective option isn't the right option or the value add, because now these guys are stuck doing more manual stuff for another 2 years because they spent the budget on the wrong tool that wasn't fit for their needs. Compromise is fine, but not at the sacrifice of the, pardon the pun, but the quality of the work that the people can do.
Yeah, and our poll results kind of indicate that too a little bit, which is that long implementation time and data accuracy are actually the two biggest issues that people run across post-purchase. And so, this actually gets me thinking about, we talk about myths, misconceptions, but what about mistakes that you've seen or experienced with the consolidated tech stack? Maybe we'll start here with Assembled and Jeremy.
Yeah, sorry, my mic needed to come off mute here. I think that there's at the very core, there's just a lot of terms we all share in the workforce management space and support in general. And at the same time, that doesn't mean they're actually all the same. It doesn't mean all of our workflows are actually the same. So I think one of the most common, biggest mistakes is that assumption of like, it seems like they have the right workflow and they can demo a workflow that seems similar to ours, but is it actually the workflow we're trying to do? Is it actually how our team works, how our agents, how our managers actually serve our customers? So I think it's really important that you actually consider that, like, what is my actual workflow? What is the actual, information I'm looking for, and does that actually connect to the places I need it to connect? So, to me, that's often the biggest mistake. And again, it's like, otherwise you end up with people trying to get data out of systems that don't want them to get it out, and trying to put it in spreadsheets or Looker or whatever, just trying to get back, find the workarounds to get their workflows working as they want them to. So it can make something that seems pretty simple really complicated when you realize your workflow is considered an edge case by even a big company with a big all-in-one solution.
Yeah, I like that, call it, of just like the thinking that there can be a workaround. And for us at Intercom, we try to dog food, drink your own champagne, whatever you call it, use our product as much as we can. And there's some things like workforce management. It's like, no, we just like, let's go buy Assembled. This isn't going to work, right? And it's funny with QA, we used to build our own QA tool. And again, like, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But in hindsight, we were like, okay, there's all these features that like we wish we had. And like, we're pulling some of our own like customer support engineers out of the inbox to like maintain the code and all this type of stuff. And so thinking that like building it on your own is like going to be an okay workaround to have this single tech stack, definitely was a mistake, and one that we've learned from. So, and I think the second like mistake, or kind of hidden cost, if you will, is like the cost on the teammate experience. And, a lot of the time, like Brad said, like, you think that this is going to be easy for people, but it's actually like, there's just all this added effort that's put in. And so I was talking to a friend, they switched from off of Zendesk to another support tool, not Intercom, I won't say their name. And like, there was a top-down decision from the VP. They said that they had to do it because they were already paying for the other software. They spent all of this money trying to like migrate their whole like instance over, and it didn't work. Like, there was all this missing functionality. Their queues got super backed up. Like, a third of the team quit because it just became so stressful. And so I think like there is this teammate experience cost when you think it's okay that you can just kind of blend all these things together. And that's again something you probably weren't thinking of on a line item of, hey, if a third of our team quits and we have to go hire them and train them all up again, was it really worth whatever like margin you thought you were saving? So something to also be thinking about.
Yeah, that's an extreme version of that compromise story that I just told, effectively, isn't it? It's yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
One more question. Oh, go ahead.
Let me, because it's interesting because this question was about when you started out was more about using it and how that plays in. I'm typically on the other side. It's selecting it. Like, okay, what do we do? What's the best fit for this customer? So a lot of times it's not using it. I can make it sing pretty well. It's, okay, what are we looking for? Oh, we need an all-in-one solution, or do we need these point solutions? And a lot of times, I mean, you get the contact center managers or the CIO get blinded by the features that are there, as opposed to the functionality they actually need in their environment. And the reality is, I've never met a contact center manager that gets a new budget every year to go out and buy new tools and stuff. That doesn't happen. It's multiple year cycles before you're sort of next one on the train to say, okay, we've got money to upgrade our contact center, do things. It just, no one has unlimited funds. So you want to get everything that you can at that point. And that's where you've got to sort of weigh what do we need? What will we need? Because a lot of times I'll be walking the show floor with a client, and they're looking for, what are we going to look for? What do we need next? And it's like, oh, this one has integrations to Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram and everything else. With this is what we need here. And you're like, well, what about this solution over here? Well, that one only has WhatsApp integration. Like, okay, but do you do customer interactions on Facebook? No. All right. Is that because you don't offer it? Or is that because your customer profile won't actually use it? It's like, well, yeah, they probably wouldn't use that, or Instagram. Okay, then you don't actually need all of that stuff. This one, which does the WhatsApp, you need that, and it fills a lot of the other gaps. So it gets to that point where it's just like, boy, we want to get everything because money doesn't come around all the time. So I think I need all the things that are listed on here. And the reality is, a lot of times you're not even going to use it, and you need to focus on what does the customer need, what does the departmental need here, as opposed to just hitting the RFP needs. How about we focus on what the customer experience need is? So I think similar to what James was talking about there, but I'm usually a little before you've installed it. It's why did you go for one or the other in certain cases? So sorry, Archie, I know you were asking another question, but I didn't.
This is great.
I might jump in there though, because it's an interesting one to just throw a little curveball. In that scenario that you've just described, is there actually a risk for the vendor to take that customer on? Because then at the end of a 12-month, 2-year term, you get into, I don't want to pay for that because I didn't use it. I don't want to pay for that.
Sure.
So there's an argument about, we have to make sure we bring customers on that it works for them, rather than just see the pound signs or the dollar signs and sign them up.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, you're going to pay for it whether you know it or not.
There's a cost down the road in the churn numbers, the customer service satisfaction. There's an argument for making sure that we pick the right customers and help them find the right solutions as well. I mean, that's why you exist, Brad, to do that.
No, you're right, because that's. I mean, there are so many analogies, like you said, in this industry. I mean, do I need a truck to climb a mountain and tow a boat and then has a pop-up tent? Like, I do the school run and I go to the grocery store. This car works perfect for me. That's great. But if I interview Archit and he says, we love boating, family goes camping every weekend, you should probably get this truck. This actually fits for what you need. There's a cost value that we're looking at here and what the needs are. So I'm sure everybody's got their own analogy there, but it lends itself to what we do here is like, no, that's what you need. And it's going to be great for the next 4 or 5 years until technology changes. And then you may revisit this whole thing, because who knows what, ChatGPT is going to do for us in the next 12 months. I don't know, but it's going to change how customers experience the contact centers. So there we go. That was my analogy for your James. So
I liked it. It's an extravagant version of Bobby's Jobs to be done.
Yes.
Isn't it? Tools for the job.
I love that. This is actually a great segue, because my next question is actually, what advice do you have for someone, maybe someone in the audience today, or someone watching the recording, who needs to convince their company's leadership that best in category solutions are better than the all-in-one?
I'll start and then maybe let some others finish up. I mean, common thread in all these questions is knowing what you need. every one of the vendors that's out there in the space right now, all the good vendors, before they do a demo to you of their product, they do a discovery call. And they do that because they want to pull the use cases out of you. What are you trying to do? What are your pain points? So that they can go back and show you, here's your pain points. Look how we'll solve this for you. And a lot of times, I think we don't do that in the contact center when they're writing their RFPs. They go to, here's what we do now, and here's the other things we'd like to add on in our new system. Could be point systems, could be all in one. Doesn't really matter in that case. But they've sort of stepped away from the whiteboard where we will all go up and say, okay, this is what the departments need. This is how the processes work. This is the customer experience we're going for. Okay, what solves that? How do we do that and make this, this great customer experience that we have here, as opposed to just feature dump and demo me every single thing that you have out there. I think that's really the starting point. Like if you're looking right now, some people are premise and they're like looking out there and they're like, oh, I just need one system to throw out all this gear that I've got out here. It's like, well, you actually probably aren't even using most of that gear that's premise that you've had for decades out there. So go back through and do the use cases. What are you using? What are the processes that you have that may change because there's technology that you haven't even thought about yet? You're like, well, this is how we've always done bonuses. So, that must be the report that we need. You don't need to do that. Just look through what you need. And that's what the vendors are doing. They're going to figure out where are your pain points, what are the use cases, and they're going to try and solve that for you. Usually in the sales cycle, that's how this game is played out. So I'll let some of the other vendors. They do the demos. I don't do demos anymore. So I'll let them sort of tuck in.
I think that's really spot on. And I mean, I don't do demos. I just support our customers. But I think the real point you're making here is that you need to do what's making your team successful. And I think like even taking that step further, just thinking like index on the customer experience, like ultimately even things that are not necessarily direct with the customer, like a QA tool, it really is when it's taking time away from your team to work with customers if they're having to copy and paste links between tickets to like put in their spreadsheet, QA responses. So I think that then gives you a really strong narrative of like, we're trying to make the best customer experience. This tool allows us to do that. And that's the story you're able to then sell on, why this particular tool is the right choice for your team. And I also think it's important when you're talking about that sales cycle as well as, when you have these best-in-class solutions, they're the ones that are able to make it work for you and are actually motivated to do that. Whereas I don't see that from the all-in-ones where they're trying to make it fit, but it's not really, they're not as motivated to make it like truly what you're looking for and setting you up for success. So I'm a big fan of that, like getting the tool you really need. Like I think of like it's the first principles idea, right? Like this is what we actually need. This is the core of what we're trying to solve for, and this tool is the one that hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I can jump in. I think like if I'm trying to give someone advice, having these conversations with leadership, like to make a generalization, I think a lot of these like all-in-one offerings, they've gotten to the place of being all-in-one because they're often like the incumbent, or they've been around a long time and they've done all these acquisitions, they've bolted things on. But a lot of the time, it's like these companies like can be like asleep at the wheel, especially if you're looking for like if you are looking for specific software. And so, this is my Intercom plug. It's like, yeah, like you can go look at some of these other software solutions that like are all in one, that have AI bots built in or have help desk built in. But like when you go to tell that story, it's like, okay, like have they actually shipped have they updated the UI in the past 10 years? Have they how have they been responding to feature requests for customer support? Do they have like a compelling vision around how this experience should look? For something like AI and customer service, it's like that should be front and center. And if you go to Salesforce or Zendesk websites, it took a long time before it was. And so being able to tell that story to leadership and say, like, I want to go with this guy because they think deeply about these things. They are on like the cutting edge. They are like all in on solving these problems for me and my team. You're going to help overcome that maybe leadership bias to think that they just have to like stick with something that's already been approved or, saving the cost. So that's like I think how I would try to pitch it. And then secondly, pitching that along with like talking to other customers who have tried this and maybe it didn't work for them, like bringing that into part of your argument. So we're in the customer service space. So like finding those communities to say, it's like, hey, who's tried to like make this work? Or like, I'm ripping on Salesforce. Sorry, Salesforce. Like we used to use them for our community platform, and like we signed this big contract, and then afterward we went and pulled other customers, and people were like, oh no, like you can't get any support for it. It's in maintenance mode. You're going to be out of luck. And like we were already stuck and locked in at that point because the decision from top down was like, well, we can maybe just spend the money as part of the Salesforce contract, move the money around. So I think talking to those other customers will help you like kind of bring those pain points and make that argument even more compelling.
Yeah, agreed. And it kind of that backs up the piece we were talking about earlier of is it real? And there's no greater way of grounding the reality of what something can do than the customer's already using it. So that's a really great shout. And actually the vendors should be happy to give you those customers to talk to, because if they're backing themselves and they believe it. If there's any hesitation, then actually that probably is a red flag. So that's one for me. The other argument we often make is, why do your leadership not want the best in each of those categories? Like if it's all about cost, they're doing it for the wrong reasons anyway. And the chances are you'll get a great deal on your first sign with the platform, and at renewal, it all goes up. And you're back to square one with actually a platform that's underpinning mediocre operations. So there are a couple of things that we talk about. Why would you not want the best tools? I mean, it sounds so obvious. Why would you not want the best tools?
You're right, and I'm going to tag on to what you said, and also what Bobby had mentioned about switching from one large vendor to another. Recently had a client that was on an all-in-one and was acquired by somebody. The company was acquired, and then they had a new standard, so they were bringing in a separate all-in-one. That's just the nature of it. They'd already standardized, and we had recommended a point solution.
Any final questions for us?
Oh, sorry, what happened there?
Yeah, not sure.
We can still hear you, Brad. Keep going.
Yeah. So we had recommended a point solution for QC, and they said, well, now what do we do? We've had all this, and it's like, no, you're in a model now where things integrate together. The one that you're taking out and the one you're putting in both talk to the point solution. You don't actually have to worry about, we've done this wrong because we got the. It's like, no, you actually did a good thing, because what you have in your QC environment is going to stay there, regardless of swapping these out. And it just made it more palatable. Like, okay, we're being forced to do this, but we had a good thing here that we picked this point solution for this one functional area. It just made it easier to manage moving between the two different platforms. That's something you don't see all the time, but I mean, large organizations, we do have a lot of M&A and things like that. So
it's a good point though, isn't it? Is that actually by doing it the way we're recommending, if one thing isn't good enough anymore, it's only one thing you've got to swap. Whereas if your platform itself is starting to really kind of creak and be old school, you've got to take the whole thing. So that's another interesting point that we're probably running out of time to explore, to be honest.
Yeah,
but,
sorry.
No, this is.
Go ahead.
No, this is great. This has been really, really good. Unfortunately, we are kind of at time. I'll leave a couple minutes. Maybe, Brad, I think you had a couple final points. But if people do have to jump, okay. But if people do have to jump, I want to thank Jeremy, Bobby, James, Brad for being part of the panel today, for providing the insights and the responses. This was really helpful. Hopefully the audience as well enjoyed. There is one last poll question that we had. So if the people attending could take a moment to fill that out, that would be great. And then I'm just going to share a way for everyone to reach out to us if they would like to. So feel free to connect with Assembled, Intercom, or evaluagent. Our websites are here. Like I said, everyone will receive an email with a recording, so you'll be able to reference this going forward. And again, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate our panelists for all their insights, and have a great rest of your week and weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.